Best scheduling software on the market. Look, we are in the process of analyzing a bunch of different ones right now. We myself has traditionally used Primavera P6. And as probably most of the listeners are listening, and going all the way back to the P3 and SureTrack days, I'm sure many folks are going to remember that as well. But my thought about scheduling software is this: it has got to get to a place where it's a cloud-based collaborative solution. To me, I don't understand why, if I go to a tech company's website, why do I not just get a quick little demo of what it is that you do right then and there? Tell me, show me, so that I don't have to go through 3 different rounds of sales cycles and then the constant, every single week, SDR blowing me back up. How about a daily brief? How about an AI daily brief? It goes through everything that we put into the system yesterday. It analyzes everything that should be upcoming in the next couple of weeks. I think that some of these AI providers are able to do right now, but bundling it together into that daily brief, where just click of a button, now the whole site gets an action item, a call to action list of things to accomplish that day. I think that's like the natural next step. And I'm really excited for it, because it's, again, going to help us focus on the high risk items, to bring it back to my scheduling roots, the critical path items that will impact the job the most if we don't do those.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks Bytes podcast, where we dive into construction and AEC technology. Before we get started though, if you're a startup founder or operator responsible for innovation in your company, or you want a deeper, more insightful look into technology in AEC, you won't want to miss our newsletter. From deep dives into particular technologies such as AI, robotics, design, software, and so on. Hot takes from investors betting big in AEC technology, and advice on building tech companies, including the stories and takeaways of the most successful AEC technology founders. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get this exclusive material straight to your inbox. And now for the episode.
Patrick, so thank you. And first off, can you tell me how my team Tennessee got on in the what do we call it? The basketball?
Yeah,
something?
it was the March Madness tournament. So the first time we connected, when we were chatting, it was just getting started. I actually think the day that we talked, like the first games were just kicking off on Thursday early afternoon. So
Yeah.
you picked Tennessee. They made it to the Elite Eight, which is pretty good. That means they were one of the final 8 of 64. But they ultimately did not win. They lost to I can't remember who they specifically lost to. It might have been Houston, but the Florida ended up taking the trophy home this year.
Seems to sum up my entire existence. Always in the top 8, never the top 1.
Yeah.
Okay, Patrick,
you need to fight for it.
Okay, so your official title, Patrick, is Planning and Analytics Executive at Harkins Builders, but I don't think that says too much. So maybe you could explain to us and our audience like what you do, and the reason I say that is because when we had a conversation, you do quite a lot of different little things around the construction tech space.
Yeah. So I think I'll at least start with just a little bit of background. I got my start in the construction industry in the project controls and project scheduling consulting world. So I worked for a number of different consulting companies for years before ultimately coming to Harkins. And the way that I joined Harkins was Harkins had grown to a certain size where instead of using consultants like what I had been doing, working at consulting companies, mostly consulting general contractors, Harkins decided they wanted to bring that in-house. So they had actually recruited somebody from the field, a lead superintendent who was particularly good, really an expert at scheduling, who just had a desire to come and kind of stand this up. And he quickly realized that as Harkins grew, he needed a little bit of help. It couldn't be a one-man pony show to set up a scheduling and project controls department across the entire company. So I had some connections to Harkins previously and still had some of those folks in my network. And he reached out to me. And next thing you know, I was joining Harkins to kind of assist him with standing up what ultimately became our project controls department at Harkins. So project controls for us, a little bit different than the traditional project controls, what we group under our project controls department is scheduling, quality control, warranty, VDC, and then also analytics. And I may be missing one thing. So, yeah, scheduling, quality control, and safety. So all of those things kind of group under project controls. And so for us, project controls is kind of like this support division that supports all of the other different departments in Harkins in various forms and fashions. So me specifically within project controls, my wing is that scheduling, that planning, and then that analytics wing. And then that other individual who initially kind of started the scheduling piece before I came in, he now oversees safety, quality control, warranty, VDC. And together we work to kind of just create this environment of being, an avenue for folks who need assistance with one portion of their job, some process that they're working on, some type of analysis that needs to be done, possibly bringing on a new software. But our main goal, the best way for me to sum it up at Harkins and within the project controls group, is to make the lives easier of every other employee at Harkins in some way, shape, or form. So that's what we really do. Again, my specific piece is that scheduling, that planning piece, because going back to where I got my start in the industry, that's kind of my bread and butter. But as far as the analytics piece goes, and then a lot of what we're going to talk about today, which is the technology and innovation space, that kind of got started because when I first joined Harkins to kind of assist with the beginnings of this project controls group, which really did start with in-house scheduling, I had garnered some amount of experience, mostly with like business intelligence from working with some of these consulting firms. So taking a ton of schedule and cost data that we had for the GCs and sometimes owners that we were representing at the consultancy, and then just presenting it in a way that made sense for the end user, right? Like, as you guys know, kind of being in this industry, like a giant schedule of 10,000 activities that's 100 PDF pages long of list and Gantt chart, that doesn't really land well with everyone. It lands well with people who are, very good at scheduling and able to kind of read through the lines, but it doesn't have a cover page. It doesn't sum up what are your schedule risks? What happened this month? Why is this happening? What can we do about it? So we started to learn about the best ways to present information from these 10,000 rows of schedule activities to our clients. Again, going back to the consulting time, in a way that made sense for them and could be actionable. So when I got to Harkins, I, of course, was like, hey, let's also do this with the scheduling that we're doing here. But then I started to be exposed to some of these other technologies that Harkins at the time was using. Procore, to name one, is the project management solution. And Procore, this is back, we're going to like 2018 when I first started, but they were, to me, one of the first softwares where I was like, wow, they're offering this free open API access to all of our data. Here I am. I wanted to come in and just do analytics on our schedule data, but now kind of the world's my oyster. I can do analytics on this, that, the other. And there's all these different types of things. So through over time, kind of working with that data, learning how to connect to APIs, pulling in the data, structuring it, and then connecting it to reporting tools, on nights and weekends, just kind of started to build the framework of reporting and analytics and how that could assist, really all departments at Harkins. But it started with that operations side, the field side, and what we were putting into those PM tools. So that ultimately, of course, over 7 years kind of turned into, okay, now we've got an analytics team. We have a data engineer now. Myself and a few other individuals will take on doing some of the report building at times. I mean, we're able to build this out in a way as we gained momentum behind the reporting piece, the analytics piece. We're able to build some momentum to grow that team out a little bit and then flex into some other things as well. And then the last thing I'll just kind of say here about my role. So naturally, as one becomes acquainted with softwares, with their APIs, with what the output of the data that's going into those software is, that makes the life easier for all of our people at Harkins, going back to kind of, our goal within project controls, we and my team are able to really, I think, provide a good first line of defense when we're checking out new software, analyzing it, because we have through working with all of these different departments, from, the risk management department to the pre-construction department to the HR department to the field operations, we're able to have a pretty wide understanding of the different problems that our folks are going through at Harkins, and how potential new technology can help solve them. So we constantly find ourselves analyzing, what's new to market, how could that help, trying to pilot it if possible, and really just implementing solutions. Again, kind of to close my opening spiel here, implementing solutions that help the rest of our company in any way that we can.
So just to give me a little bit more of understanding, so you wouldn't be dealing with any like a robotic solutions, for example, to a layout for layouts, for example, you wouldn't be dealing with like tangible tech.
Yeah, so we will look at that kind of thing, and we do, like, we also have a VDC department, right? That's a part of project controls, and that's our VDC manager, Carlos. He is all over reality capture and robotics and 3D printing and like that whole side of the equation. So it's kind of nice because within my group, it's more like software technology and business process flow, kind of like streamlining and implementation. Within Carlos' side of things in the VDC department, that's where the reality capture comes in. That's where some of these robotics come in. That's where, it's kind of like between his world and my world, we kind of team together to provide a full suite of solutions for the different types of technology that our company can implement.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to ask about the context a little bit more. So in terms of Harkins, how big is Harkins? Maybe you can tell about revenue if you can share, and number of employees.
Yeah. So Harkins, over the past, call it, 5 years or so, maybe 4 years, has hovered around the 500 to 700 million range. As far as, and that changes obviously with the years and the market and how
Tariffs
we're going. But as far as, employees go, we are sitting right now, I believe, in the mid 300s. And that includes about 250 to or so, maybe as high as 280, what would be considered like project management and field operations staff. So folks who are going out to the job site, on the job site every day, PMs maybe going to 2 or 3 job sites throughout the course of a week, depending on what their workload is. But that's about the size of the company in terms of employee count.
And innovation department, so including you and VDC folks, like how big is innovation?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to group innovation under kind of what my side of the equation does, which is the data, the analytics, the software kind of side of things, the business process flow side of things, and then also group in the VDC side with the reality capture and that whole piece as well. I would say, it's not called our innovation department, but the folks that are continually driving innovation at Harkins in some way, shape, or form, I would say it's probably about 5 or 6 of us in some way, shape, or form that's a part of what we do day in and day out. It's not written into our job description, drive innovation, but it's a role that we have taken on because of the roles the other roles that we serve within Harkins. So about, I would say, five folks or so.
Oh, and what's interesting to me when Patrick says this is that they divided VDC from scheduling and the analytics, which is quite unusual because I don't think we met anyone yet who's done that. There's usually someone from innovation, and that's broadly covering the whole aspect of innovation.
Yeah, I think it just kind of played out that way based off of expertise of certain individuals and where they landed within the organization, and then kind of where passions drive certain things that people take on within their day in and day out. So things have changed over time in terms of different hires we had. We've had a couple moving pieces within the VDC department over a number of years, and same thing with ours. And that's just kind of where we've landed at the end of the day. But I do want to be clear as well. It's not like there's this like line of separation. Like I sit right next to our VDC manager, right? And so we're talking about various things. We've teamed up on different webinars before and gone and spoken at events together. We're both driving different ways that AI can shape our company and how it can assist. And it's really a partnership, I would say. It just lies with, that individual, Carlos, his expertise is in, coordination and using things like Revisto and using reality capture tools and drones. And that's where his passions are. That's where his expertise is throughout the course of his career. As I explained, my background's in that scheduling, that project controls piece, that analytics and data analysis piece. And so since that's where really our backgrounds are coming from, we kind of just merge into this partnership, bringing those different experiences, and it works out really well for us.
Patrick, what's the best scheduling software in the market?
The best what?
Yeah.
Scheduling software in the market.
Best scheduling software on the market. Look, we are in the process of analyzing a bunch of different ones right now. Myself has traditionally used Primavera P6, and as probably most of the listeners who are listening, and going all the way back to the P3 and SureTrack days, I'm sure many folks are going to remember that as well. But my thought about scheduling software is this: it has got to get to a place where it's a cloud-based collaborative solution. That P6, they have. Primavera's done things where you can set up, some type of remote server and people can remotely work in the same P6 file, but you have to always press F5 to get the schedule. The other people's changes. And if you're not sitting right next to each other, maybe they did something and you don't know why they did it. Now your stuff's pushing, and it's a cluster, right? So I think that we have got to, at least from a scheduling perspective, get to a place where there's real-time collaboration, not only for the scheduling folks, like the professional scheduling folks, like some of my team, but also for the field. Because how disjointed is it when you have a lead superintendent and then a group of superintendents and project engineers under that individual trying to all work their various portions of the schedule for a weekly work plan, and then you're trying to portray that weekly work plan out to all of the foremen of the specialty contractors that you have on your site. And this is all trying to be done through either PDF or through some form of sticky notes, which still seems like one of the better methods that we've come up with in the industry. But I truly do think that over the course of the next 5 years or so, we're going to see a front runner. Urge is that new cloud-based solution. I'm not going to name any names yet. We're evaluating.
Yeah, I was going to say, we don't take commission on here, so don't name names.
But we are evaluating a lot of them right now, and it's something that I have really kind of set as a priority for our planning department, which is we need to get to a place where we have a more collaborative scheduling solution that's, by the way, also easy to use, because traditionally scheduling software has not really been that easy to use. And so I do think you see a bit of a dysfunction or disalignment, so to speak, between the scheduling professionals in the field, because it's not that easy to use Primavera P6 if you're a lifelong, field person. It's just not something you've done every single day. So I think we'll get there. And there's a lot of, I'm happy to see that it's pretty evident venture money has come into that space over the past couple of months and years here. And I'm happy to see that it's a problem that really smart people are actively trying to solve, because it's one of the biggest things in construction, I think, that currently has a lot of dysfunction still associated with it.
Could you tell us how does typical traditional scheduling look like, and what are startups perhaps offering better or more than these traditional tools?
Yeah. I mean, traditional scheduling looks like this, right? You have a consultant or an in-house scheduler who's going out to a job site or hopping on a Teams call more recently with the immersion of all the remote stuff after COVID. And they are collecting dates. In many cases, these are dates that probably have not been thought about or written down in a month. I think all people out there will agree that, we encourage teams, and some teams do it really well. Write down the dates on a daily basis, do their own schedule updates in a production planning schedule, be ready to deliver all those dates to the professional scheduler for that month.
Quick, the scheduler's coming. We must write our dates down.
No. In reality, in practice, we know what happens is it's you go out there and you spend hours collecting those dates, you plug them into P6, you hit schedule now, you see what happened to the end date, you make your logic changes based off of what's changed on the site. Maybe you put in some fragnets for some delays, or you do some mitigation if you're behind schedule or recovery or what may have you. You produce a set of reports, you send them out, and then you wait until next month. right? That is what I think a lot of people will agree who are listening is a traditional scheduling process. Now, when you talk about getting beyond that, what I'm seeing is a lot more companies make concerted efforts, as we are at Harkins, to change that mantra to be an ever kind of living communication and collaboration tool. On a weekly basis, we have, the teams, the site teams meeting, updating schedules that can then feed back to the professional schedulers who can analyze the delay, put the contract packages together, make it all kind of this living, breathing thing as opposed to this once a month meeting, boom. So I think as far as what startups are doing, I think number one, what I'm seeing is they are simplifying the way to use scheduling tools. So instead of having to log into this remote P6 desktop or this slow server to plug in actual dates and to collect that information through either a phone call or a site visit or an Excel sheet or handwritten PDF notes, they're streamlining that process to some extent and doing that in a cloud-based scheduling platform, which I love. But what I think, the ultimate, person who comes out on top in that particular space is going to be the one that figures out how to do what I just said, to make it a comprehensive, living, breathing, everyone's collaborating together at all times tool. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I think that we're seeing a couple of different options and avenues that some of these startups are betting on in terms of how they're going to accomplish that task. But I don't know which one's going to win yet. And it's great to see, that there are different trains of thought that are coming out of some of these companies for how to solve that problem, because what it allows me to do and what we're going to be actively doing at Harkins, and what we currently are, is engaging these groups, piloting them on certain projects and seeing, after we collect feedback, which has landed best, right? Like, did this land with you guys? Yes or no? Why? Did this land with you guys? Yes or no? Why? We put all that information together, and now we're in a great position at our company to make an informed call on what our long-term solution is. So, to say what people are doing right now specifically that I think is changing the game, I don't think there's one thing. Everyone's got a little bit of a different approach, and we're just happy to be testing all of them kind of simultaneously and seeing, what lands best with our team.
Is there anyone trying to? Because it seems to me that the problem lies on the data collection side. So if you collect the right data and then you feed them, or they will be fed directly automatically into platform
that's
software.
a good point. Yeah.
Then it should be very up to date kind of live organism that is giving you like what's hurting, where attention needs to be put in, right? Or are we only working on the software side, or also startups are working on the kind of this data collection and feeding into the platform part?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it in both, right? I think we're at the very early stages of that. So I've talked with companies who are using reality capture to go out and take 360 cameras and walk around the job site, and then that, AI analyzes it with computer vision and makes an informed decision on what activities should be updated with what dates if you're doing the walks, every day or every other day like you should, right? I think one of the things that, to me, just speaking with somebody about this the other day, one of the things that for me, the reality capture, the piece as far as updating schedules directly, I can't seem to get past in my mind, but I'm sure someone who's a lot smarter than me one day will, is like, what about the work that isn't visible to the naked eye, right? Like, what if I have someone that's running wire through conduit that's buried? Or what if I have somebody that's, doing something in the walls behind the scene in a shaft that, like, a project engineer who might be walking around with this camera on their hard hat would have to like literally peek up into the shaft and see, right? So like, how do you account for that work? So maybe there's some type of like, I don't know, alternate way to streamline the collection of data. I think that using daily logs could be a good one, but then of course you get back to the age-old problem of are the superintendents filling out the daily logs as accurate as they should be? And I think that varies, right? Some do, some need a little bit of work there, and that's okay. That's always going to be how life is. There's always going to be some experts with one particular piece of the equation, and some folks who need a little bit more work getting there, or because they're experts at another piece of the equation. But I do believe, Martin, to your point, that that will be something that comes out of what we're seeing on the scheduling side, because it is by far, as I just mentioned, the most disjointed process of the scheduling workflow, which is the collection of that information to get it into a software to analyze it. So
Yeah. I think if you win that space, you win the software piece as well, because whoever has that data controls that point from there on, right?
Yeah, I would
Mhm.
hope so. So even as simple as just simplifying the update process, right? Like maybe based off of, what happened last month and all of these other data sets, maybe it is your daily logs, maybe it taps into submittals and RFIs and, other sources of information we're putting into various softwares, depending on what software suite you use. But if you can collect all of that data, analyze all that data, you should at least be able to AI, if you've trained it well enough, make an informed decision about what probably happened, right? And so one of the things that I've always said is make it like a swipe left or a swipe right, right? Like, did this happen on these dates? Yes, no. Yes, that's right. Swipe. Yes.
Like a game almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Exactly
good
right.
idea.
Oh no, this one, no, that didn't happen as planned. Swipe left. And then
Yes.
at the end of you've done all these swipes, maybe 50 swipes, right? A super
Yeah.
could be sitting, in bed, ready to go to sleep, and they're like, okay, cross test ready for my schedule update. Swipe, 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 swipe. No, 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 no. And then the next morning they go into work and it's like, okay, now here are the 5 no's. Let me make a couple changes to what those 5 no's were. Enter,
Mhm.
enter, enter, enter. Now I've got my schedule update, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it goes to the scheduling professional who can analyze that, ask the right questions, and figure out where we go from there. So I don't know. That's a simple solution.
I would say that you'd have to be very careful if your husband or wife was swiping right or left in bed.
Agreed. You'd have to explain that one, right?
I promise you, I'm scheduling the job. I promise you. Also,
Scheduling the job. What do
on
you
that
mean? What do
point,
you mean?
I love talking about this kind of stuff because my brain really does start ticking. You could offer 5 cents every swipe.
Yeah.
So it really gamifies and goes towards some form of bonus for the project.
Yeah,
If the project delivers,
incentivize it some way. I mean, make it easy, right? Gamify it. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
If you're able to create that brain sensation of you're gaming on this, or it's some type of competition. I mean, that's where you really start to win over the users at the end of the day.
Get the dopamine going, man.
Yep.
Martin, should we go on to tech adoption? I'll be very interested to hear. This is under the key topic too, Patrick. So, how if there's any way that general contractors accelerate tech adoption from new technology or software providers? Is there a reason why you would go, okay, we need to use this software, we need it fast, or does everyone have to go through a little bit of a vetting process, which just takes the time it takes?
Yeah, I think for us it's 2 buckets, right? If there is something that's in general working, so just to kind of one last point on the scheduling piece, yes, it's a little bit disjointed, but it's not completely broken, right? We still have the process where we're collecting those dates, we're getting the packages together, we're trying to get that to be then turned into a weekly work plan and breed that collaboration communication space. But I bring that up because it's not completely broken, it unfortunately for the software providers is going to be a longer sales cycle for us at Harkins, because what that gives us the opportunity to do is to actually analyze 3 or 4 or 5 different potential solutions to this and take our time really collecting the input, the feedback from those solutions to make the best call at the end of the day, because we're not on this schedule. We're it's broken now, we need to fix it, right? The second category would be it's something that is actively really causing pain or heartache or needs to be fixed, ASAP. And I think a more recent solution to this, and more recent, I mean within the past couple of years, of a quicker sales cycle for us. I'm not going to name again the company that we went with, but we were having a lot of problems with the collection of COIs and keeping
What's COI, sorry?
certificates of insurance for our trades that we were having, for the vendors that we were using on our site, right? And for us, we need to make sure that that's always up to date. And so it was just a very cumbersome process. We had a few different people who were, trying to keep track of it in different folders and maybe repurposing a document solution software for that, which it wasn't really meant to be. And then tracking the expiration dates and things of that nature. It was was a cumbersome process. And we needed a solution fast to that, right? So we analyzed a couple different options that were out there. We relied on other resources that we had. So we talked to our brokers, we talked to other people who were aware of what other of their clients were using. We looked at a couple options, and we got together as a group. We said, this is the one we want to go with. Boom, we signed a dotted line. We implement the software. So because that was a workflow, a problem that really was, I don't want to say it was completely broken, but it was something that really needed to be fixed or streamlined, so to speak. That was where we were able to get it to happen quicker. So I think for us, it's really, it's more so kind of like, what is the priority in terms of how this is impacting our day in and day out as a business right now? And if it's something that we really know we need to address through multiple people reaching out or saying that this is really tedious, we need to fix this, that starts to get higher up on the priority list, where we don't have the luxury, so to speak, to pilot 4 or 5 different things before we make a final call.
Does the burning problem come down to money? Like, is it costing you money?
To some extent, I would say yes. I think that it's always so hard to quantify exactly how much things are costing us, when it comes to efficiencies and workflows and things of that nature. But yes, I mean, that's obviously something we analyze, is what is the, potential loss of money that we have, because instead of this taking some person's time, 2 hours, it's taking them 10. You add that up over the course of a year. What does that equate to in hours lost? And then you can, of course, tie a dollar amount to that. But to some extent, yeah, I think, we think about that, but I wouldn't say that's the sole determining factor.
Mm-hmm. So within your spaces, scheduling and project controls, is there one software solution that should cover all of it, or it is fragmented to 2 or 3 that would
4, 5,
cover
6, 7,
cover
8,
this whole
9, 10
workflow? And if that's the case, why is it not one just that can cover everything?
I mean, look, I think for scheduling, again, particularly on the planning and scheduling side of things, there's not one right now, but I think that's something that these newer and upcoming groups are trying to achieve, is to be the sole source solution, right? So I do think that is one example of something that could, in a number of years, as the current landscape continues to develop a little bit more, that it could be an all-inclusive solution. You are now capturing the contractual scheduling aspect, the production planning aspect, the collaboration piece, the collection of data piece, and ultimately the output of that in risk, but also the output of in risk to the job, but also output of that in the contractual updating requirements that general contractors are forced to adhere to by the prime contract. You could, in my opinion, get that grouped into one. But I think, if you take that same question, you apply it, broadly across the entire construction technology landscape, it's a varying answer across the board. I think in some cases, yes, you can comprehensively have everything in there. I think, if you look at the pre-construction space, you have some folks right now with some of these pre-construction startups who are building true platforms to cover every aspect of pre-construction.
That excites me.
But what's interesting though, because when I go and I work with our pre-construction group and we want to try to implement new technology within that group, and I think you guys will probably agree with this, pre-construction is notoriously kind of, I don't want to say resistant to change, because our group is certainly not resistant to change, but they are very, they like what they have. So I think that the solution there, it's really tough for me if, there's a couple of different components of what they have and they like all of it, for me to just come in and replace all of it with, here's your platform that's going to fix everything, right?
That's an interesting take, yeah.
An example of me of let's take one piece of that pie and let's solve that one first. So maybe that's, the historical database piece, right? All of our budgets in one place, and we can kind of then use that to inform conceptual budgeting moving forward, or we can get quick ideas of where we landed with similar buildings in the past, apply some type of, inflation rate and get to a similar number to present to owners and clients and things of that nature. Or maybe it's the bid leveling piece, right? What if we just solved, okay, here's all of our bids that came in. How can we level these quickly with the use of AI and based off of historical data? Or maybe Maybe it's the invitation to bid piece. Although there's certainly a lot of companies who have done a very good job solving that one already. But to me, it's like platform wise, that's a really hard way to have one thing. Like scheduling, I think you can do that, and I think you can probably implement that pretty quickly. Pre-construction, there's a whole lot more moving tentacles there, and for me to find success with our group and for them to be comfortable making a change, we have to walk before we run. We kind of have to take a different bites of the apple at different periods of time to get people comfortable with this small change here, that small change there, with the grand scheme in mind, but years down the road. And that's the problem, is software companies don't want to hear years down the road because they're raising money, they're trying to increase revenue, they're trying to increase company value so that they can have their exit or whatever it is. And for them, that's get everyone in, get the highest, highest piece, and let's get the big bang for our buck here. For us, it's like, we just want to test one small piece of that so we can slowly start to understand the impact on our business and also not overwhelm our people with constant changing in terms of the solutions that they're using.
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
Hey, Patrick, so what would you say, you do some work with construction tech startups from if I remember correctly from our conversation.
Yeah.
And so thinking of that and also your role as someone who is deciding on technology, where we've been talking about this actually, another preface to this question on Bricks and Bytes, a little bit about getting your messaging right and how a number of construction tech companies, you can go on their website and scroll for a minute and be less educated than you were before you landed on the website. So what's your message to people about getting their messaging right? Is it a major problem? Are we over exaggerating? Has it ever put you off a company?
Look, I'm not seasoned enough in the tech sales space or the, to say exactly why or why not things are the way they are. But to me, I don't understand why, if I go to a tech company's website, why do I not just get a quick little demo of what it is that you do right then and there? Tell me, show me, so that I don't have to go through 3 different rounds of sales cycles and then the constant, every single week, SDR blowing me back up. Hey, did you see anything yet? Did you see anything yet? What are your thoughts? It's like, my thoughts are, I talked to you one time and I've got a lot of work to do to think through the problem, how we're going to solve it, and what our next steps are. We could avoid that whole awkward interaction if I could just truly, from one look at the website, get a brief demo. Now, of course, this is where I might plead a little bit of ignorance, right? Like, is that, if you're on the tech sales side of thing, is that giving away too much? Is that where now maybe competitors, particularly if you're in early stage, are going to see what you're doing? They're going to pounce on that. They might try to copy it. They might try to squash you. So there's give and take there, and I totally get that. But yeah, I mean, I can think of an example where more recently, where we started piloting with one company, and it took, a number of calls and demos and just me asking questions to truly get to the bottom of what this company did. It ended up being something we really wanted to try. So we're actively piloting it. But I was telling the sales rep there, it's like, man, if I just knew that the first time I looked at your website, we might have gotten this done 3 or 4 months ago.
Oh my God.
So that I think, again, like I said, lead a bit of ignorance here, because I haven't lived that life and walked in those shoes specifically of balancing the telling what we do versus not giving too much information away for free. But it certainly makes it a bit difficult on our end when, to your point, and I go to a website, it's like and then it's a really high level problem that they possibly solve. And it's like, I don't know what this means. And okay, we'll come back next time.
But is it not your data?
Is it not the case that every competitor for this A company would be trying to solve the same problem?
Yeah.
And there's only one path to. There's a straight path. The straight
and ask, right?
The straight path
is
a
message on their website.
The straight path is the right path to solve the problem. So I struggle to think about someone not willing to give information on the website just because of like some sort of secrecy, because everyone in the business struggles with the same thing. So yeah, I just think it's just sloppy marketing.
Solve the problem really, really well. And if you do that, I promise you, you'll beat out all of your competitors. Just better than
got a great product.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it easy to use.
Exactly.
Get it in the hands of your customers. Yeah. How about I wanted to ask about cold outreach, but I don't know. Has anything struck you recently that's worth discussing, Patrick? Where people either call you or email you? What catches your attention?
I honestly, I feel bad because like I understand that side of it, and it's proven that cold outreach is like probably the single best sales tactic besides inbound if you can achieve that really well. But as far as like an outreach or outbound perspective, like it works better than LinkedIn. I can tell you that much. It works better than email because it's very, very rare that that's something that will bite on. Although occasionally it still does happen. But like the cold outreach is the best. The problem is like I just mentioned, you give someone an inch and then that starts to turn into a mile. And where I start to feel bad is it's like as the calls then the follow-up comes in, weekly or bi-weekly or whatever, like I really do just want to answer, be like, and I don't even know half the time because I don't have the number saved, but like it's just guys, I promise you, I'll let you know when the time's right. And if it was something that was really intriguing to us, we're going to be following up. So I don't mind it. It's I personally just feel bad because I tend to then get into a zone where I'm not as responsive as I could be to these folks that I did have an initial connection with. And it was probably to some extent a good one. It's just, unfortunately, the sales cycle takes so much time and we can't, our teams aren't big enough to tackle everything at once, right? So we really have to pick and choose what those battles are. And I try to the best extent that I can to kind of lay out those priorities when I speak to different sales folks from within startups. But it's all good. I think that, I don't know a better solution to that than what it is, which is just calling. I just hope that no one ever feels as if, if there's month or weeks in between communication that we're trying to burn bridges. It's just trying to keep everything in front of us, prioritize it the best way that we can, and then attack the different things based off of those priorities as they start to come through the queue.
That's an interesting point. Sorry to interrupt. I was thinking about how about if there was an AI agent that knew what you were prioritizing and could take these cold calls for you and then say to you, Patrick, this is the one you need to speak to.
I absolutely love that idea. Believe me, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I think there's obviously some configuration on our part to like say what our priorities are. But I mean, maybe if you can get it to the point where it connects into all of your data warehouse or something like that, it can actually sift through your data and say, these should be your priorities. You can change them if you want to based off of what you think, but based off of what our agent's seeing, these and your data, these should be your priorities. And now kind of navigate them. And then you're exactly right. Set that up on your team's incoming calls and kind of screen the calls for you and let you know, like this one came in, it's probably one you should start to focus on based on your current timeline. I also think it would be really helpful. And I'm curious if you guys have any good ones. It would be really helpful if that like also had like a to-do, like what are the next steps that like it automatically kind of started to create for you. Yeah. I just started to get lost, right? Like if you guys could see my desk right here and then you see my desk at my office as well, it's like sticky notes everywhere. And like, I need a better organizational app. So if you guys have any thoughts on that, I'm all ears. But But seriously, if you could either integrate into one of those like already nice to-do list apps or something like that, or just generate, what the next steps are, what your kind of timeline should be based off of what it's thinking your priorities should be, but also what you're telling its priorities should be, plus add in the phone call screening piece. That's a great idea right there.
There we go. Finally, the Bricks Bytes agent.
Yeah.
Bricks Bytes, yeah. Patrick, I wanted to touch on, you earlier said that your teams, the scheduling teams, wouldn't perhaps like to have a software which suddenly like flips over everything, and you would prefer that the startups would tackle separate kind of like verticals within scheduling and solving the, can I call them pain point, like a point solutions or?
Sure. Point solution.
Yeah. Wouldn't that mean that you end up with quite a few point solutions solving separate problems and not having kind of connection in between them. Yeah, so that seems like that's been a construction tech play in the last few years. Yeah.
Well, let me just maybe kind of elaborate, right? Like, I'm not saying that construction tech companies should not build platforms that are, achieving all of these goals at the end of the day. I think that's exactly what they should be doing, and I'm probably certain that's what the venture capitalists are looking for as well. Is like an all inclusive platform, because then you can start to upsell, increase revenue over time, all of those things. What I'm saying is, like, if your solution does 20 different things, but right now for my company, we are trying to do one of those, right? I don't want to have to buy the 20 inclusive platform to be able to solve the one problem. And I
Oh,
think
got it.
that's where right now it's a little bit difficult, because if I do spend all this money for the platform, because that's the only bundled pricing that works, yet we're only using 10% of it, 20% of it, we start to get this feeling of, now we're losing money off of this product rather than it actually making us money or making us more profitable or making us more efficient. And then there's this weird divide, and who knows where that ends up. Maybe it results in a churn. I would hope not. And I would certainly kind of push for more increased use from the users. But I'm just telling you from my perspective, what I see is like, throwing a platform on somebody whose job might have 20 different components is a really, really tough ask for a construction company, even a mid-sized one like ours. And then as you go down the totem pole to groups who might only have one person pushing innovation, maybe zero, it becomes increasingly harder. So if there were a way to, within these platform solutions, which again, back to your point, Martin, I'm all for, and I'm very grateful that that's the way that these startups are tackling the problem, because in the end game, it's going to be so much better for us. It's just really hard for us to implement giant platformed solutions in the snap of a finger. And so if there was tiered pricing to kind of help get there by picking off that kind of one by one type of thing, that would really lower the bar of entry, I would say, for us to use the tech.
Maybe let's chat about pricing a little bit. What's the typical way of charging for scheduling project controls software? And what's the typical and what would be ideal from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, we can
Can't say free.
You can't say free, yeah.
Yeah, we can start there, and then we can kind of go into the broader landscape of what I see across the board with pricing. But generally speaking, right now the older scheduling tools are like, buy a license to the software, use the software, right? But that's also like, buy a desktop license. Now it's on your desktop forever, or maybe you've remotely hosted it on some remote cloud desktop, whatever, and you all log in together. Okay, but buy a license, get the software, pay it yearly. With the cloud-based stuff that's coming around, and the more modern day softwares, what I'm seeing in the scheduling space is the exact same thing I'm seeing in every single other space, which is charging, generally speaking, by the revenue that you are putting in there in terms of the projects that are within your umbrella, right? So like at Harkins, okay, if we did 600 million last year, that's going to be your basis of what if you want to roll this out enterprise, we have a bucket at the $600 million range, and you can extrapolate that out to virtually any software that we look at, right? I don't mind that pricing structure. I mean, it's such a weird thing. I do think that it allows us to some extent to at least pick off like certain projects that we want to put in there, maybe like one division that's a slice of that revenue, and we pilot it with that division, so the pricing kind of tiers up and down depending on that. So I don't mind that, but to me the piece is like, offer a little bit more flexibility in the tools I am going to use and the tools that we haven't necessarily used yet. And I will, again, without naming names, we're talking to one startup right now that's going to do a lot of help with like compliance and various different aspects, like possibly like like minority business compliance for work where we have those types of numbers that we have to hit, or certified payroll compliance, things of that nature. And they have a different module for all of these different aspects of the different compliance pieces. And they have been super willing to work with us. And it's like, I think we're going to start with this one. It's like, all right, we'll turn off the other pieces and we'll start you there. And this will be the price. Then when you bring this one in, we'll go to this one. And I really appreciated that approach. And that's what I would hope from others who are building platforms. It's like, if we just want to use the one, I'm okay with the revenue by revenue of projects we're putting in, kind of pricing, like fluctuating structure. That way you grow as we grow, and that's a win-win for everybody. But allowing us, again, to kind of get back to the modularizing of the different tools within your product, that's where it becomes, the thing that I don't see quite as often that would love to.
So you are way further on this charging journey that my thoughts, because I don't like the way that they some software providers charge for the amount of revenue. I just think that it is taking away the human talent from it. So when assuming that you've got a great schedulers, I think that's how you call it, and there is one license of the legacy software, and they are brilliant and they're doing everything great. You have very fixed cost of this of the scheduling within the business, right? Once you start adding the layer of the revenue onto it, then you can't really grow efficiently as a business, because it will always grow with your revenue. So you need to search for the margin somewhere else, right?
I mean, look, I'm not a giant fan of it. I just can't think of a great, better way. Let me put it that way, right?
Yeah.
I think use-based consumption is the easiest thing for me to sell. When I'm now, we've gotten past the testing it, evaluating it phase, and now we're going to go and we're going to say, okay, here's the price, guys. Let's sign it. Let's move it out. All right, what's the price? Let's talk about it. Are we willing to take that on? Do we have the overhead? Are we going to do this, that, the other with how we charge this within our system? If it's just like, okay, 600 million, here's the price, versus like use-based consumption, like what you see with a lot of data companies, right? Just to kind of go back to that module, right? Like, so for our data warehouse, we pay based off of the amount of data we put in there, amount of queries we do, and the amount of things and transformations and different things we do within that data warehouse, in the form of credits. And that is, there's no arguing that, right? Like, it's really fair. We've used it, we've consumed it, we pay for it. I think the problem with the revenue-based model is like, we have to estimate what this is. If we're over it, okay, now there's a problem, and we might not get to use it anymore, have to pay overcharges or whatever. If we're under it because we didn't estimate as well, or maybe a project, that we were intending to use this on slid out by 6 months, and the next project up didn't have the same need for that same type of software, there's no give back to us. And so when you're talking about, like you said, kind of as the revenue grows, the efficiencies of that thing, I think to some extent, we still do see that a little bit, Martin, because generally what we'll see is there is an economies of scale. So like the price per project at some amount of revenue, if I'm just going to create a random metric at like 100 million, is going to be, more than what the price per project is at 700 or $1 billion, right? So like if I put $1 billion in there, my unit price is definitely going to be less as I get up. So you see still a little bit of efficiencies with growth in that aspect. To me, though, it's the whole, like, are we really, and it's impossible for us to tell, are we really getting 100 or 600 or $1 billion worth of revenue, quote unquote, use out of this software? Is every project that makes up that $1 billion in revenue using the software to its fullest extent, the exact same way, getting the same value out of it? I'd venture to say that the answer to that is no. So then back to kind of what I'm talking about, which is more of a like consumption-based pricing. Well, then, okay, let's just talk about scheduling for a moment, right? So what does that mean? Do now we charge by the amount?
How late you are.
Right? Like, do now we charge by the amount of activities I put into all of my schedules? I don't know. That seems like that doesn't really have the human touch either. So I think there's a fine line, and we'll see where it all shakes out. But certainly across the board, whether it's scheduling, whether it's pre-construction software, compliance software, AI co-pilots, whatever it is, we're seeing it based off of revenue-based pricing, generally for the most part, universally, I'd say. And there's always exceptions, but to somehow tie it back to consumption-based pricing, like you see with data companies and cloud computing and stuff like that, it's just so easy for me to stomach that. I wish we could figure out a more personal way to kind of to do it, where it's like, hey, this is what you use, this is what we charge you. Boom, boom, boom. Easy.
Simples.
Yeah.
I actually think that the reason we're having this conversation about charging is that most people feel that there is quite significant cost to software nowadays, which is kind of counterintuitive. As I'll repeat it, what I usually say here is that
and I'll fall asleep quickly.
Software should be deflationary.
Okay, what did you say?
Technology should be deflationary. So that's the main point, right? If you're feeling that people are charging slightly too much, then
But in response to that, Martin, you're giving people more value.
Where?
By reducing their costs. So you should benefit from that value as the provider.
Well, as long as you're reducing their costs, that's true. But sometimes, as Patrick said, it might not necessarily be the case, or they cannot establish that, which is just not right? So
maybe.
Yeah.
Can we?
It's just hard because obviously there's going to be price increases over time, and the question is like I think a point I mentioned way back, and we were talking about it a little bit before we went live. It's like how do you truly quantify a dollar amount of savings that like a software is going to save you in terms of a business process that becomes more efficient or something of this nature, right? Like
we've had all sorts.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different metrics, and every company that solves a certain problem is going to come up with their own way of expressing that thought, and none of them are necessarily wrong. There's just no like, yes, it was actually this dollar amount to the cent, right? So for us, it's this give and this take question on like, as the prices are increasing, which again, every company has every right to increase price over time as functionality grows, as use increases. But as the prices are increasing, at what point does it get so high? I think back to what you were saying, Martin, where it's like, now is this even worth it? And then also, I think something else is like, or as we become a little bit more proficient in the technology and the innovation space, like, is it something we can build? And now instead of having to live within the confines of how the software was developed that we're purchasing, is there an avenue where for a similar or lesser price, we can build it ourselves specifically for our business processes, which may create even more efficiencies? I don't know. We'll have to see that. But as far as the pricing goes, yeah, it's a problem I think that every contractor either is or is going to have to fight through, which is really modeling out is what you're spending on software returning the same amount of value, and that'll be a game we'll have to play for years to come.
Sure. Very good. Patrick, quick last topic point from me would be just, I will ask a very broad question about AI.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's amazing. I mean, I think that, ever since ChatGPT went fully live, what was that? Like 2023, November, something like that?
I think you might be right.
I think what we've seen is like a really awesome like shift. And there's actually stats to back this up. If you look 22. Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
It's been that long.
I know. It's crazy. Time flies, right? There's some awesome stats out there that I've seen, and I'd have to look them up again, but the amount of like queries on Google and queries on Bing have significantly decreased because people are now just going to ChatGPT to ask questions, to interact with this in certain ways. And it needed those 2 years that we've been through, 2.5, where we're at now, to get people comfortable, I think, with speaking with like a chatbot that's backed by this LLM, right? And now I think that there is a comfort level around it. I think we're going to see some tremendous ways that that's applied across the board. in our construction data. You already see this with certain startups, right? You see this with what some of the bigger companies are doing with like now creating like modularized agents within your platform, or chatbots that sync up to X, Y, and Z data and provide output on it. So that's the natural next step. But then where do we go from there? What can it really start to tell us about our risk, right? And like where we have risks and what action items to take on that risk. Because to date, a lot of what it does is it reports back in natural language, very quick results of a query. So it's like, hey, tell me the drawing that has this detail on it, and tell me, what this detail is. Enter. Really good. We're at a place where it's going to return a drawing that's probably the one you asked for, maybe not always, but probably the one you asked for. It's going to show you that detail. And a process that previously took me flipping through paper or swiping through my iPad, a minute, 2 minutes, couple of minutes, down to seconds. So that's the first thing we're seeing. Phenomenal. But now, one of the things one of the guys on one of our sites said the other day that I thought was tremendous was, how about a daily brief? How about an AI daily brief? It goes through everything that we put into the system yesterday. It analyzes everything that should be upcoming in the next couple of weeks. And I can go, give me my daily brief. You should go talk to X, Y, and Z subcontractors and make sure that this work is occurring today. You should be on the lookout for these submittals because they should be coming back. And if you don't see them today, they're late. You should reach out to the architect and do this. You should, the weather's coming in, and you should make sure by 2:00 you're getting the site buttoned up because it's going to be really windy. So you'll want to make sure the crane's brought down by then. Various things there's certain components of that I think that some of these AI providers are able to do right now, but bundling it together into that daily brief where just click of a button, now the whole site gets an action item, a call to action list of things to accomplish that day. I think that's like the natural next step. And I'm really excited for it because it's, again, going to help us focus on the high risk items, to bring it back to my scheduling roots, the critical path items that will impact the job the most if we don't do those. And then the other stuff, maybe can wait a day or two. So that's where it's going to take the hours of thought of trying to get all of that on paper and figuring it out and then go executing. Get that done. Take that out of the equation. Tell us, in a daily briefing, what's upcoming. What do we need to be thinking about? What are the big deals? So I'm really excited, from that aspect of what it can do for us. And then we'll see. I mean, as far as like some of the other things, like generation of budgets, generation of schedules, like the generative AI, like, are we going to see it building the drawings for us, getting us schematics and the click of a button so that we can start to do pricing exercises early on this plot of land that a developer we work with just built, like those are the other things that remain to be seen, but I think are also going to be tremendous for where we see the industry go in the coming years.
So there's 2.5 years within the AI and legacy software. Have they implemented any of the artificial intelligence within their stack?
So we are right now, what I'll say is this, we are piloting certain things that I just explained, which is kind of these bots that will sit on top of your data and respond back to you with answers to what you're asking for based off of the data that you've connected into it.
That's with startups or with the legacy?
Legacy startups, we're kind of trying a lot of different things right now. Right? So yes, I also see what other things we're doing with AI at the moment is we're working on building like predictive modeling for cost forecasting, for safety incidents, and that's based off of our own data. So doing things within our data warehouse environments to attach certain models and then get outputs that hopefully help us identify risk before it becomes a great problem. So, one of the models we're working on right now is predicting percent chance of a safety incident in the next month, right? Awesome enough. Our safety department is super into it. And they're like, we really, really want to see this output and hopefully help us direct, where we send our people for monthly inspections or follow-ups or things of that nature. So love that they're champions behind it. Another thing that we've implemented on our own team with AI is like, okay, we do our scheduling inspections. And the safety department does multiple of these, every month on the jobs, right? As soon as that inspection goes in to our as soon as it's submitted, the data then flows into our data warehouse, kicks off a trigger where we have an AI model analyze the results of that inspection and then spit out a summary and then emails that summary out to the whole team. And it says, here's the inspection that was just completed. Here's the summary of that inspection. So you don't have to go through a 150 item list and try to get your own actionable outcomes from it. AI is now analyzing that for us within our data warehouse, sending it back out to the teams that are on that job because we have that data for who's on what job tracked somewhere else, emailing it out instantly. Now they can see, okay, these were the things that need improvement. These were the things we did really well. Let's go focus on those things that need improvement so that we can be better next time. So that's something that we're implementing in-house. We're actively trying to implement our own chatbots that are LLM backed on our data warehouse of data. That's proven to be, a bit more difficult because the prompting is the hardest part, right? So figuring out the correct way to prompt it to get the results that are meaningful. So we're working on that. We're working on the predictive piece. And then really we're relying on either large software providers that we're currently using or startups that are really kind of starting to enter the equation to develop that next level piece, kind of going back to that, risk daily briefing of things to be on the lookout for. Another one in my head that I've always thought would be amazing is a trade partner, risk analysis, right? We have data on the quality of the work that we've done with them, the safety, the schedule. We have the pre-qual information. We have the bid information. We have change order information from all of these vendors over years and years and years of work. Why can't we use that to assist with bid leveling? Going back to something else we talked earlier, where it's okay, here are the two numbers in traditional bid leveling. They're at 200. They're at 100 difference. Okay, what do we think? Is it worth spending the extra 100 for them? Now it's okay, can AI take all of that other data and potentially quantify for us what the difference is in terms of price to level it for us based off of 25 other data points, not just the bidding data points, right? And so now it's, okay, well, they're at 200, they're at 100, but after you apply all this other risk, analysis that AI has done, it's actually 200 is actually probably more 500 in terms of risk, and 100 is actually more 700 in terms of risk. So it's probably better to go with this one. And I don't know, I'm just kind of spitballing numbers out there. That's another one that I see that would be really hard for a mid-sized contractor like us to build internally. As far as the summary output of a safety inspection, okay, that's an awesome thing that our team developed, and it's being received so well. But that next level, the daily briefing, the subcontractor risk, next level stuff, that's where we have to rely on the software, startups and providers who are, have some of the best data scientists and coders in the world working on this kind of thing. And we're excited to see where ultimately that leads to with our software partners that we work with, for sure.
Cool.
Okay.
All right. I think we're pretty much out of time. So, Patrick, could you tell people, is there any initiative you guys are running at the minute at Harkins, or any other March Madness? It's actually April now, so we can get involved. The NFL draft is starting tomorrow.
Yeah, NFL draft starting tomorrow. That'll be great. Our office is at least our HQ office is a split between Washington Commanders fans and Baltimore Ravens fans. So we'll see where that goes. But no, we're if we're talking about some fun initiatives, I think going back to March Madness, we have a Pop-A-Shot we set up during March. And they do a bracket Pop-A-Shot tournament. I think we're down to the final in that. So I'll be checking out the leaderboard and seeing who's going to take that one home. But no, things have been great. And it's been awesome speaking with you guys today. I really appreciate the time and for the candid questions and conversation. And yeah, thank you guys.
Okay, just tell us where people can find out more about you and
yeah. I mean,
Harkins.
me specifically, just look me up on LinkedIn, Patrick Hennessy, shoot me a note there and reach out. I'd be happy to connect with anybody. That's where, for me, I think I learned the most about just everything I've really even learned about analytics, tech, everything by just having conversations with people, like-minded people. So I tell anyone else who reaches out, if you want more information about where we started with analytics or with technology or with innovation, and, we've built some of our own software as well, reach out. I'd be happy to share our experience, tell you, why it took us 5 years and why it should only take you 2, or one, because we screwed up here, and here, please reach out. I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'd love to help, set a roadmap for your goals and help you achieve them. The old cliche, and everyone says it, but rising tides raise all ships. I think that it's a beautiful time to be in the construction space, because the old mantra of trade secrets, what trade secrets anymore, right? Like, everyone can see everything with the digital age that we live in. And I'm very lucky to work for a company that's willing to share some of those experiences. And if anyone out there has a question about anything we talked about today, or anything else that, I could be of assistance with, please feel free to just reach out on LinkedIn, connect somehow, and love to chat.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Yeah.